Now let's talk about Russia. It is facing a new problem. The ruble is falling. The Russian currency has sunk to new lows. Today it breached the 100 mark. What does that mean? It means you can exchange $1 for 100 rubles. This is a 17-month low, and this has been a trend of late. 2023 is not going well for the Russian currency. Since January, it has lost 40% of its value. The 100 mark is a psychological one. The ruble breached it today. Do you know when was the last time this happened? In March last year. That's when the ruble dropped to 136 against the dollar. This happened right after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. But by June last year, the ruble had recovered. It was trading at 50. The recovery was thanks to high prices of oil and gas. The fall in March was a knee-jerk reaction, a consequence of Russia's decision to attack Ukraine. So what is happening now? Why is the ruble falling again? Because exports from Russia are falling. I have some numbers from the month of April. The value of Russian exports fell by 35% in that month, in April. And why are exports falling? Because Russia's oil and gas revenues have declined. In July last year, Russia earned over $16 billion from the sale of oil and gas. This was last year, July. 1 year later, this earning has fallen to less than $7 billion. Now, oil and gas is Russia's main export. So when its value falls, less money goes into Moscow's coffers. And that in turn puts pressure on the currency. But things may improve soon because remember, Russia's economy is not slowing because of sanctions. Instead, it is adapting. It is also growing. As per the latest data, the GDP expanded by 4.9%. This is for the second quarter of 2023. And why is this significant? Because so far, the Russian economy had been shrinking. In the last 4 quarters, there was a contraction, mostly because of Western sanctions. There has been immense pressure. Moscow has shown remarkable resilience. If the present trend continues, Russia's GDP would be back to pre-war levels. The conflict has frozen, but the economy has not. Industrial production is up in Russia. That's due to high levels of defense spending. It is helping Russia's economy. And this is not unheard of, by the way. In the past 2 wars have led to economic growth. Let me give you some examples, in fact. During World War II, America's GDP grew by more than 17%. This was in 1942, 17% growth. The Korean War also boosted the American economy. This was in 1951. The US grew by 11.4%. Then we had the Vietnam War. Again, the US economy grew rapidly. In 1966, its GDP peaked at 7.3%. What explains this paradoxical relationship between conflict and economic growth? There is a simple explanation. During war, there is unprecedented mobilization of natural resources. Factories ramp up production. There is investment in infrastructure. All this expansion creates jobs, and that fuels economic growth. But who foots the bill for this? It's usually the government. Leaders need resources to fight wars, so more budget is allocated towards defense, and that's exactly what's happening in Russia right now. Moscow has set a new defense spending target. It's a target of $100 billion. Earlier, the target for 2023 was $54 billion. So the new goal is almost double, perhaps because Russia has already spent the amount budgeted earlier. In the first 2 months of this year, Russia's defense bill was worth $26 billion. That's half of the original budget, $26 billion. And where is all this money going? Mostly to make weapons. The Russian army will get more military resources. Moscow has been boasting about this progress.
The Russian weapon-making industry not only quickly adapted to working under fierce sanctions pressure, but also its power grew many times over in some areas.
There is a message for Ukraine here. More weapons means Russia has no intention of slowing down. This war will continue. Moscow is looking for a clear outcome, not a stalemate that leads to a negotiation. That does not mean the sanctions are not hurting Russia. They are. They have curbed growth and options. But they failed to inflict the kind of pain that the West had hoped for.